Well, hey, what's up, India? What's up? What's up? What's up? I get this question all the time, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a video about this just to kind of have a reference point. Why do you love India? Why are you doing these videos on India? Why are you focused on India? Why? And all to that I gotta say is Zag. Why Zag? No, I'm kidding. Why I love India. I think let's start from the top. This is going to be a long video, kids. So go get yourself a drink and sit down. I'll give you a minute. Okay, so 1989. I think it was 1989-ish. The professor's a senior in high school. The Simpsons has come out, and they have aired a character named Apu. Apu will become the baseline from which most Americans will look at and say all of India is like that. All of India is like that. And the only touch points that Americans may have with an Indian back then was if they owned a little convenience store or grocery store in the neighborhood. That was about it. And there were always comments about the accent, making fun of the accent. Now, with that being said, I don't make fun of the accent. I never have. And I'm sure when I speak Hindi or Telugu, people are cracking up. Just part of the way we are. That's fine. I can accept that. And in 1989, I was a senior, and I was not a man of character that I am today. I was involved in a lot of illegal activity. I was working with gangs like the Latin Kings and the Gangster Disciples and actually cartel to move drugs into an area that I lived in at the time, a college town. And I would kind of help them out with that. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not trying to glorify it. But most of my friends from that time period are either dead or in prison, friends. And it's very lucky that I met the Warrior Queen when I did, because she saved me from all this stuff. But there was a freshman Indian kid. He was a foreign exchange student. And I don't remember his name, but he was very smart and very funny. And when we would be in things like gym or detention, he was in detention. I would spend a lot of time in detention. I had so much detention that I actually had to go during the summer for detention. Isn't that crazy? Anyways. He would crack me up. Just the things that he would say, his sense of humor. And everybody overlooked him because he had brown skin and talked, I'm not going to say strange, talked differently, sounded different to our ears than the typical American. Well, he was very astute and very, very smart, and he noticed a subgroup of Americans that we would call stoners. Okay, stoners. They were kind of, on drugs all the time, really didn't care about learning. They thought, education is stupid. They need to do is get high, right? And one of their favorite drugs of choice is marijuana. And this foreign exchange student had this idea of, let's get oregano and sage and some pine cones and crush it all up and blend it. And I'm going to sell it to these stoners because they're stupid and make a killing. And so he was selling them fake pot, fake marijuana, and they didn't realize it because they were such morons. And and I don't know, after about a week or two, they realized, wait a minute, we're not getting high on this stuff. This dude ripped us off, and they came to whoop his butt, dude. They came to whoop his butt. And I saw it coming, and I intervened. And I intervened on this young man's behalf, and I said, not today. Not going to happen today. You guys are going to have to go deal with it the other way. And they pled their case why they should be able to. And I told them, I don't care. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. And back then, people were a little afraid of me because of that kind of past I had. And again, I don't say this to glorify it, just to give it context, to understand. So I intervened on his behalf, and he just always cracked me up. He always would crack me up. And he was here. I don't remember from where. It said his family was really wealthy. And I said, okay, have a nice life. And I went about my business. Then I moved from the Chicagoland area to Arizona, and Warrior Queen in tow. My son was little, maybe two-ish, maybe. And I got a job, and at this job, I was the only white dude. Everybody else was Indian, and there was one Indian dude who was Muslim, which I was kind of freaked out about. Like, what? Indian Muslims? Is that a thing? Is that a thing? That seems so weird. Like, don't be a moron, Professor. And he was very nice to me, and I was like 22, and he had where he worked. The location he managed was all Indians there, Bangladeshi and Indians, Pakistanis, all working there. And he had an older woman that worked there. I guess she was probably my age now, dude. And she was always, dude, just like. Anyways, that's another story. And there were a couple Hindus, and I used to hang out with the Hindus, and we would have fun. And then the rest were Sikhs, and the Sikhs were super, super cool. Like, my boss was a Sikh, and the Sikhs would kind of argue amongst themselves because some of the Sikhs were like, "We're not doing the turban, dude, and we're going to eat what we want to eat." And then, like, the old school Sikhs were like, "What are you doing? You can't do that." And they were like, "Doesn't God love us all? He loves us all. I'm taking my turban off." And they would have these arguments about over, blending into America or not. And I thought the Sikhs were Muslim. And again, I've told this story over and over again. But Jaspir, who was the oldest of the Sikhs, and he had something to do with their temple. And I don't know if he was like, a priest or just I don't know what he was. But he was super cool to me. And he would answer my questions about Sikhism and say, no, that's not what it is. No. I wear the turban because my hair is really long. And one day he showed me how long his hair was, and it was down to like his ankles. I was like, what? And he didn't get offended, with the wrapping of it. And these guys are just super, super cool. But every year they would go back to India. They would save up all their vacation. They'd be gone for like, I don't know, couple months. They would just be gone. They'd take a leave of absence and go to India, because they would take all their money that they made here and they go back to India and buy a house or build a house or whatnot for the whole family, and they kind of supported the family back that way. A lot of the Sikhs left the company. They went and started their own companies and went across the country, but super cool. Very, very cool. My next touch point with them was after 9/11. Right up the road from me is a place called Mesa Star Mart, and it's owned by Sikhs. And after 9/11 happened, a Sikh was out planting flowers in his gas station, and it was a unique gas station. It still kind of is, but they put flowers up, and you don't see that in America, right? They took care of it. It was their family dream, and it's in it. Here they are living it. And a crazy hillbilly pulled up and just assumed he was Muslim and got out and shot him dead in front of his little boy. His little boy was like 2 or 3 at the time. Little boy. Shot him dead and said this was for 9/11. That was hard. It was a hard period of time. Because it's literally a block from my house. Quarter mile. I don't know what that would be in kilometers. Not far. You could walk to it. You know what I mean? Comfortably. And I thought to myself, okay, he's not Muslim. He is not Muslim. Like, what are you doing, dude? So he went away to prison, and then I got to meet the shooter's family. I was at a church teaching school, and came across this family, this little girl who lost her dad to prison because he was a shooter. And it was really a weird moment for me to be like, I know the family of the victim, and I know the family of the shooter, and what it tells me is, hatred is stupid. Hatred is super, super stupid. And so then that was a touch point with India, and I moved on. Then I decided to fast forward years. I want to try YouTube. Like before YouTube, I was doing podcasting for 8 years maybe. And we did a series of podcasts about church corruption, and we got people arrested, bad pastors who were stealing money, hurting kids, everything that you don't want to see happen in a church. And that got us a little bit of notoriety. Some local papers picked up on us. Some California papers picked up on us. And I thought to myself, how do I parlay this? What do I do on top of this? And I thought, well, let me try YouTube. So I tried YouTube, and nothing really happened. I was putting content over to YouTube. And we did some radio. The Warrior Queen and I did some radio, and I introduced her into the mix on the radio show. And we did a radio show called Revolution, and people loved the show. Just like my Indian friends love the videos together, people loved the radio show because it was 2 hours of us bantering, arguing, whatever. And sometimes she'd get super mad at me on the radio, and we would fight on the radio, I'd be apologizing, and people just had a good kick out of it. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try YouTube again. And I was watching Collider a lot, and I like superheroes, and I thought, I'm going to do a superhero thing. And I sat down with my son, and I said, what do you think about this? And he said, well, you should call it Movie Community College, right? Because you have no production, and community colleges are kind of janky. And call yourself the professor and teach classes on superheroes. So we started off, and we did, Wolverine 101, 102. Like you're going through college classes and learn everything you can about Wolverine. Nobody really watched. Now, some of my older videos got some views on it. Because I explained weird things and stuff, characters in Deadpool or whatnot. And there was an Indian dude, and I don't remember his name, who said, your videos are funny, they're super cheesy, they're funny. You should do Bollywood trailers. I think this would be really funny, and I think people would enjoy it. And so I said, well, let me look into it. So I did a couple trailers, and I wasn't sure what Bollywood. I knew Bollywood was an Indian film industry. I knew that. But I didn't realize how different the cultures are. So I started doing videos inserting American humor. I remember doing Sholay, and there's a scene where Big B is holding hands with the other guy. And I made a joke. It was just a joke about like, wow, I'm really touched. India has embraced the gay movement in your films. And, dude, oh, man, you guys pounded me, dude. You pounded me. You just smacked me around. And that's fine. And then I apologized and was like, sorry, I didn't really understand. And along the way, I've met Indians online that have been super cool, that have reinforced this. Okay. And I want to go through some of them, and there are a lot that I'm not going to mention. And if you don't hear your name mentioned, don't be upset. I don't mean any disrespect to it. But right now I got to stall for time because you guys know that I am not ever prepared for anything. So let me pull this up. So we have the one Indian who suggested that I go on YouTube, and then there's been a whole bunch of other Indians. I would say the first one I would like to say is an Indian girl. Her name is Niloufar Nawaz, Niloufer. Last name is Nawaz, Nawaz, and she's been around, I think, probably since the beginning, very, very close to it. And she has challenged me in my statements on Islam, on Muslims, and trying to paint them with a broad brush of okay? Because I spent a lot of time for a while kind of just hammering on the neighbors to the west. And she would say that's not right, that's not what we believe, and I have a lot of respect for her because she has proven me wrong on a few points, and I respect her for that. And periodically she'll show up in the comments, and it's always a pleasure to see her comments. and because she's one of the first, you kind of have this bond with kind of the first. Another one that comes to mind is Rashi Berry. She's been around for a long, long time, and we consider her like a friend. She used to take some videos of her village and send it to us so we could see, and it was very cool. I think another Indian that comes to mind is a guy named Ani. And Ani's another dude who isn't afraid to speak his opinion, and it doesn't offend me. It doesn't offend me. But I remember as I'm trying to sort through the Indian stuff, like the movies, and there's all these subsets, and what does it mean to be Northern Indian and Southern Indian, and and people would say, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And you're like, okay. I was like a dog. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And I started coming on SRK stuff. And I made a comment about it. I just didn't think the man was that good. And like with any big body of work, you can pull out duds. You can pull out with duds, except for probably, I would say, Amir Khan and Irfan Khan. I've never seen a dud, but whatever. I'm sure they're there somewhere. And I would go on and make these videos about how he's overrated. And Ani would just be like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what are you doing? You are pissing off everybody. Like, what are you doing? And again, it was just the ignorance of the Indian culture. And the same thing happened when I would bring up Salman Khan. In SRK, I'm going to tell you a story about SRK, and it's a true story. I think he strikes me like Tom Cruise. He can be very, very good, or he could be okay, right? But when I was going through some copyright issues, and I'm still kind of going through some copyright issues, because we tend to make people mad, because when I see something that I think sucks, I say it sucks. It's my honest opinion. I don't want to be up here just like, oh, that's great, because what's the point, dude? What's the point if you have everybody just sitting around being like, it's like, it's fake. I don't know if you guys notice this, but most of the reactors are fake. And I was having a hard time with the Chili Peppers company that he has. And I was getting I got like a bunch of strikes and blocks, and you go through YouTube and you go and you appeal it. So I wrote a letter to whomever, dear sir or madam, and I explained to him, listen, I don't understand what the problem is. I'm not taking your movies and selling them. You have made a trailer that's made for publicity. I am using that trailer that you have made because you're using it for publicity, and I'm following fair use. I'm criticizing it, right? Don't be a fascist. Only fascists would punish people for speech they don't agree with. And I got a note back, and it was from SRK himself, and he apologized and said, use whatever you want to. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Who does that? Who does that, dude? Who does that? SRK does that. He's a good man, dude. I'll tell you what, he's a good man. I will never speak ill about his character. I have a lot of respect for him. Because there are some other actors that are like, no, if you know. So Ani is one. Who else comes to mind here? I think Rishikesh. Obviously, Rishikesh comes to mind, and Rishikesh sent me a message. This is how I met Rishikesh. He sent me a message and said, hey, listen, Professor, I've been watching a long time. Your videos suck, and you need some help. Now, I do this for a living, and I will give you a couple intros free, but then you got to pay. And I said, okay, let's see what you got. And again, because this doesn't offend me, don't be horrified when you hear me say this. I'm not offended by any of this stuff, right? And so he sent me a couple things, and I was like, that's not bad. And I said, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And he can. And And I think a business is forming, really, I think, with Rishikesh and I, of all kinds of different stuff that we're trying to get into and grow and challenge. And he's another Indian that comes to mind. Arjit is an Indian who comes to mind. Arjit, when I was on social media, and I'm not on social media, and people will say, well, this is about why I love India, so let's forget about that. Arjit said, Professor, I know you're doing a lot of Russian stuff, but my Indian friends are unsubscribing from you because all you do is Russia. That's all you do. You don't do any more Indian stuff. Why? Why don't you do that? And at the time, I told him the truth. The truth is Russia was like 70% of my audience. And so I do, out of 10 videos, 7 are Russian, 3 are Indian. Because if that's only 30% of my audience, then that should be 30% of my content. And he said, I understand, but you're losing a lot of people, and I think you should rethink this. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. And some things happened with Russia that I thought, you know what, it's just probably for everybody's betterment. Let's just go back to India. Let's go back to India. And so we started doing more Indian content, and hey, guess what? It's flipped. Like 70% of my viewership is Indian now. So here we are, viewing Indians, are doing Indian material. So out of these touch points that I've had with Indians, and there have been jerks in there. Yeah, people say, well, some of us are, there've been jerks. That's okay. There are jerks everywhere. All these different touch points have now moved me into another area, I think, of interacting with Indians. I seek them out when I see them in public, and I go talk to them. And sometimes I think it freaks them out. I was at the mall, and I was talking to this guy, and I said, are you from Bangladesh? And he was super freaked out, like, how did you know that? And I said, you just tell by your accent. And I was right. And probably my closest, well, I shouldn't say close, they're not closest yet. I'm pressing. But a family that I am the fondest of, that I know, is an Indian family. And we hang out sometimes. They're from Vizag. The husband's from Vizag. The wife is from Hyderabad. And I'm trying to force him into teaching me Telugu. Because I think it's important. I would like to transition, I think, at some point in time and do my reactions in either Telugu or Hindi. And I think that would be like, whoa, what's up? What's up? I would be like, what's up, gangsters? And I think that would be awesome. There's a group here called AZ India, and you go see their movies. I think we're going to try to go see 102 Not Out if they're carrying it, which I'm pretty sure they will. So this is why I love India. I love India because India loved me first. I love India because Indians have always been kind to me. When I've had touch points with them, they're helpful. Very, very smart, super smart, very clever, hilarious. Indians are hilarious, and it really bothers me in America because they're so funny, but Americans don't pay attention. Oh, he's got brown skin. I can't understand what he's saying. What's he saying? It sounds so weird. And it's just a funny people, dude. It's just hilarious. You're missing out. You're missing out. Whatever, more for me. Screw you, Americans. More for me. More India for me. Very helpful. Very, very helpful people. Kind. When I was young, they've looked out for me. These Sikhs really looked out for me. So why, I love the culture. I love the movies. I love the music. And this is why. This is why I respond to India. This is why I love India, right? And I think it's important for you to know because people ask me all the time about it. All the time. And that's why. So I hope this helps on why I love India. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace and much love.